Hey, what's going on, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. So this is around the time where I start wondering if the topics that I'm coming up with, or rather the ones that I choose to speak about, are just topics that I've beat into the ground. Um, it's one of those things where like Dennis Schroeder situation was concluded yesterday, and I think I made about 8 or 9 different videos on that man's situation. And this particular subject right here is another one of those kind of just been spoken about a lot. But I'm gonna tackle it again because I've heard of a new name as far as teams that Ben Simmons is possibly linked to in trade rumor at this stage, and it's the Dallas Mavericks. The thing about the Dallas Mavericks and Ben Simmons is that they kind of have the makings of the right stuff. I think, depending on what they would have to give up to get him, but they got the makings of the right stuff for that to be a okay fit. The problem is Luka. Luka Doncic, in regards to Ben Simmons, is the question mark because the complementary pieces that they have, coupled with the fact that they can have some flexibility to get better or mold around Ben Simmons, is there. But the issue is Luka Doncic, as great of a player as he is, his strengths are not the strengths you would think they would be. He's not that great from the free throw line. He's not that great from behind the arc. And the superstar that you want to line up next to Ben Simmons probably should be very good in those areas, particularly since he's not. So what you end up having is a guy who has the ball in his hands, who doesn't do those two things right, and then you're bringing in a guy who needs the ball in his hands, who don't do those two things right. They tend to do the same things. It's sort of like the issue with Draymond Green in Golden State. If Ben Simmons were to go there, you kind of just don't need two players that aren't particularly great from behind the arc, not particularly great from behind the line, but are big bodies who can pass the rock and get everybody involved and play defensive. Like, you don't need two of those guys. Now, for the Dallas Mavericks, where Ben Simmons would help you, unlike with the Golden State Warriors as much, is on the defensive side because Dallas is not very good defensively, as to where Golden State already has the makings of a very good defensive team when they have all their horses. So that's where the improvement for the Dallas Mavericks will be most significant, is when you're talking about Ben Simmons and you're going to be talking about Dallas and the defense. For which they could use an upgrade on, but not a $30 million a year upgrade when they just got them giving Luka Doncic 207. See, here's the problem with Ben Simmons. He has 4 years left on his deal. So what you're essentially doing if you bring him to Dallas is saying, hey, Luka, you signed up to play with Ben Simmons for the next 4 years. Luka did not sign up to play with Ben Simmons for the next 4 years. Not only did he not sign up for that, but that's a very bad fit for Luka Doncic in theory, as I'm saying to you. So what you run the risk of having happen is completely ostracizing Luka Doncic right after signing a $270 million, $7 million contract. He signed up for a certain type of thing. He's hoping the team builds around him. Now they're going to bring in a piece that doesn't fit, that's going to be attached to him at the hip at the most possible money they can give to a star next to him. Now, that's a horrible decision. Essentially, now you're going to have your two superstars being these two players, and then you're going to try to fill in your roster around that, having already paid some other guys as well, like Tim Hardaway. So it's Tim Hardaway, Ben Simmons, and Luka Doncic. And you're telling the Dallas Maverick fans, and you're telling Luka Doncic that that's going to be what he has to go work with and win a championship in the Western Conference. So you can clearly see why this deal should not happen if you're Dallas. I think being ambitious is a good thing. I think trying to get this level of value somewhere is awesome. I think it's the right decision. Dallas needs a number two. Porzingis is not that answer, and they don't have that answer on the roster as of yet. I personally like the Rick Brunson kid. I think he's going to be really, really good and continue to be another player that they can work into the equation in their future. He's like a mainstay in my mind, but they don't have too many of those. After him and Luka, I don't really see anybody on that roster, to my knowledge. Maybe they picked up some rookies or something, but that they can't let go of and get better. To be completely honest with you. So with that being said, and like I said, the Tim Hardaway signing, he's a mainstay for me because he's a shooter. You can put him in any system, so I don't really even look at him. And at I think he's at 70 something. I have to go back and look, but he's kind of one of those guys too, where it's all right, if we can afford to keep him, I'm happy to keep him on whatever it is that we build. Even if we're tearing this thing down, I still want a Tim Hardaway on this roster. So that's how I'm looking at him. But like as far as the players that you have the most encouragement about what your franchise is going to look like, the two that come to mind is Brunson for me and Luka as of right now. Unless I'm forgetting somebody, which I may be. So, yes, they should be getting somebody like a star. They should be getting a Ben Simmons type of star. They should be looking to pair Luka Doncic up with a legitimate number two, and Ben Simmons, by definition, would be a perfect number two in my mind. Given his limitations as a player and his strengths as a star, yeah, I think number two or number three player on a team is probably the best fit role wise for him and his production. The problem you're going to have is you have to start with him if you're building your team. You don't really want to start with anybody else. See, that's the problem that Philly found themselves in. When they got Ben Simmons, they already had somebody they were building around in Joel Embiid. So, right there, they were already at a disadvantage. Because in my humble opinion, you must build around Ben Simmons when you get him. He's not one of those guys that you can plug into literally any system at all. The only system that he possibly fits in is a system where you have a bunch of shooters and no facilitator. So essentially a team like Chicago before they made the moves they just made, or a team like the Clippers before they got Rondo, maybe even now, that would be a good fit if they could find a way to do that. It's not possible, so you don't think about it. But I think the Clippers would be a very good fit for Ben Simmons because of the fact that they don't have any mainstay facilitator. The fact that they do have a roster full of guys that he could pass the rock to and get the most out of. They do have some things that they can kind of have him handle for them defensively that maybe they don't have an answer for at this time. So I think the Clippers are starting to sneak into the conversation for me as far as fits for Ben Simmons. But the problem is they don't have no money to pay him. They'd have to give up Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, so they're completely out of it. Unless they want to bring him in as a third star, as to which the rest of their roster would be one-year deals just like the Lakers have. That would be the rest of their roster. It would be Kawhi, who ain't playing this year. It would be PG, Ben Simmons, and then whatever they could find 1 year, $1 million, 0.9, whatever the main money that they're giving out is. That's what they would be giving to everybody they find. $2 million, and they get the $5 million exception. That would be all they'd have to give. So, is that a trio that you can build around and win you a championship if you're the Clippers? No. Hell no. Especially if you're going to try to do something like that this year. No Kawhi. No. So, for me, as I look around, as I just scan around the league for Ben Simmons, the places that he thinks he wants to be in, as far as the California teams particularly, none of them are a good fit for him. The Lakers are not even in the conversation for obvious reasons. Same reason the Clippers ain't got the money for one. And LeBron James for two. That's not a good fit. The Clippers, as I've said, the Golden State Warriors, if we've talked about, we think that's a pretty solid fit, but they do have to figure out if they want to choose him or Draymond Green. I think that's what Stephen A. is reporting the divide is in Oakland, Golden State, excuse me. They just don't find themselves all agreeing. Ben Simmons and Draymond Green are a good fit on the floor at the same time. And being that they would have such big roles on the team, there's no real way to not have them out there at the same time in certain instances. It becomes an even worse fit if your shooters start to fall off. Like, let's say now you got Ben Simmons, Draymond Green, and then Clay goes down with another injury. Now it's even worse. Steph Curry goes down with an injury. It's even worse. Now you went from having horrible spacing, but at least the shooters to make it work, to horrible spacing with no shooters. And with the injury issues of those shooters, not really Steph as much right now, but Clay, I don't think it's a good gamble for the Golden State Warriors at that price. I'm going to tell you the truth, y'all. Ben Simmons is hard to deal with because of the contract more so than the player. I don't know if many people are mentioning that in their conversations, but the biggest roadblock to Ben Simmons' movement is his contract. I don't have any problem bringing Ben Simmons in if I have pieces that fit. Like if I'm the Clippers, of course I can bring in Ben Simmons. Problem is, not at that price. It's impossible. Philly paid him money as if they were building around him. But he's the type of piece to where if you're not building around him, he doesn't fit. This is common sense. It was common sense the night they drafted him. This was conversation that was being had before he was drafted. That he couldn't go everywhere because he couldn't shoot. And that he was a pass first player that was very, very big, plays the point guard position. So that would make it even more so a specialty project to bring him in because he's so big playing the point guard. How do you fit your roster around him if that's the case? You know, do you play him at the power forward or do you want to run him at the point guard? I've always thought that even though he was so monstrous, that it worked with him playing the point guard. I was wrong because when they lined him up there out there at point guard, it shuffled the lineup in such a way to where you had pieces that didn't fit in Philly playing roles that they shouldn't play just to accommodate that. And then you had situations where they still didn't necessarily fit on the floor because they didn't play at the speed to make that make sense. With Joel Embiid, who's not a speed demon out there running around. So the fit was already from just bad, but they were so sided on not necessarily looking at it from this perspective, but more so looking at it as a value of a player perspective and how you need to keep the value of that player that you drafted, et cetera, et cetera. You believe in him, you think but they didn't have any real plan for building around the man. And he's not the type of player you can do that with. It's that simple. If this were like Donovan Mitchell, no problem. Why? Because he fits anywhere. And if you got to build your team or destroy your team and build around him again, you're going to always be able to do that seamlessly. You don't have to pick and choose exactly which players you got to put around him. Oh, my God, that ain't going to work. Even though I love this player, can't put him there because Ben Simmons. They don't have none of those problems with a guy like Donovan Mitchell. You're not going to have those problems with Luka Doncic. You're not going to have those problems with mostly any other superstar that you pay at that level. Because most players that get paid at that level are interchangeable players, as I'm saying. You don't pay a guy that kind of money if you can't put him in any system. This is why. Because when it's time to rebuild or you have to move this player, it's impossible to do so. Nobody can bring him in at that price because in order to best use him, they have to build around him. And most teams all over the league have already given somebody that doesn't fit with Ben Simmons half of their cap. That's the truth. Most teams have somebody on their roster that doesn't fit with Ben Simmons. That they would have to make fit with Ben Simmons or give up in order to accommodate Ben Simmons fully. So that's where the mistake was made. I think it was in Philadelphia, paying him what they paid him to keep him there without having any plans of properly building around a player that needs to be built around. So as I talk in circles, I say to you guys, Philadelphia is just, the more I think about the decisions that they've made since the process came about, since they got all the pieces in place for the process, the more I realize that they were just not in a position to do what needed to be done with the value they were inheriting. This is one of those very, very interesting situations you look at where you say, you gave someone who wasn't equipped to handle a lot, a whole lot. And it's like, look, this is what it comes down to for me. Philadelphia chose to be bad on purpose for many years to accumulate these picks and these players. Embiid, Simmons, those guys, and some of the other value that they've gotten is because they chose to be bad on purpose. But when you choose to be bad on purpose, you start practicing bad habits to stay bad. Things that you don't necessarily need to be neglecting get neglected because that's how you effectively become bad. You gotta forget certain things that need to be taken care of. Philadelphia was able to do that. They were able to effectively forget about winning, effectively put the people around them that would be okay with tanking, people that would be in position to execute the plan of being horrible. Problem with Philadelphia is they kept the same coach that they were using to be bad, someone that effectively helped them tank. They used him and kept him in place. Lakers didn't do that. When we were tanking with Byron Scott, as soon as Byron Scott was out of here, we replaced. As soon as the tanking was over, we replaced Byron Scott. As soon as we had the players in place to move forward and be good, we brought in a coach that we thought would be able to take us there. We didn't keep the guy in place that we hired to keep us bad. This type of stuff Philadelphia did leading up to the circumstance they're in now. So when I consider about, okay, why would they pay Ben Simmons? while they have Joel Embiid on record for a certain amount, and then not surround them guys with shooters at any given season, no matter what season it is? Why in the hell are you not allowing your team to have nothing but shooters around Ben Simmons? It's literally the only thing you can play with. And you can continue to see them bring in players that can't shoot. You continue to see them draft players and ship them off. One of the best shooters that they drafted in the last couple of years, they shipped him off for a guy who could dunk really, really well, who broke his foot, and then they ended up trading away for nothing. Who knows where that guy is? The guy that they traded away that they should have kept, the one that could shoot, he was in the finals we last saw him. His name is Mikal Bridges. His mom worked for Philadelphia. At the same time they drafted him. Had her coming up there talking about how she was proud her son went to Philadelphia, was drafted to Philadelphia, and they traded him right after the interview. They ain't really been right since. All I'm saying to you is, when you be bad on purpose for a very long time, you start picking up bad habits. You start doing things the wrong way when you need not to. When it's time to turn that bad switch off, it ain't an easy switch to turn off. Bad tends to stick around. It's just like when the Lakers, talk about my old team, we had players losing a lot last season. Players that you see us bring any of those guys back. The only people you saw us bring back from last year were the mainstay stars. Why? Because when you have that losing DNA in your roster, when you have that losing funk on you, you need to clean yourself off to get it out of you. That's not something that's just going to come off naturally. It's not something that players who are used to losing don't tend to turn into winners. Teams that work in ways that don't work don't tend to just turn it around without something to help them. Philadelphia did not put themselves in a position, in my opinion, to turn things around properly, to start doing things the right way when they stopped losing. When losing was no longer the goal, they kept the people in place that were losing, and as a result, they became DNA inherited, just natural born losers. Facts. They ain't won nothing. They've had more talent than arguably anybody in the Eastern Conference, not named the Nets, and they have won nothing. And it ain't because the players haven't excelled, because the guys that they're on the team, the stars, they are stars. Ben Simmons has made plenty of all-star teams already. Joel Embiid's going to be in an all-star game every year. They've worked against, in spite of, is what I'm saying. They've worked in spite of their franchise. Those two players became what they were with no help from their franchise. Philadelphia has done nothing. It is zero to help them along with that. Zero. Those guys have had to develop under circumstances while other players around them who were drafted were just deteriorating. Markelle Fultz was deteriorating in front of them. Jahlil Okafor was deteriorating in front of them. These were players that were supposed to come in to help the team. Those guys ended up busting on their watch. Had all kinds of problems that most rookies would never have on their watch. Nobody holds Philly accountable like that. Nobody looks at that front office and say, yo, y'all ain't, you know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't developing players. I look at what they're doing now with Maxey. Maxey should be a starting point guard in this league right now. I look at a guy like, I got a couple guys on that team like that, man. It's like, why aren't they getting the minutes? Why aren't they getting opportunities? Look at Ben Simmons. Why did you pay him that? Why didn't you send him off when you could clearly see that he was never going to attempt a three-point shot? You knew what that did for your spacing, and you kept him on the roster. You knew what his deficiencies would do in an ever-shooting, changing, evolving league. But you paid him anyway. It ain't about the money. As I've explained to y'all on my channel and other videos, the way I look at this is nothing to do with the dollars. You can give him 1,000,000 times that, and I will smile and be happy for his family. That has nothing to do with the dollars. It has to do with the portion of the cap that you're giving a player. That's all it is. You see how hard it is for the Brooklyn Nets and the Lakers and Golden State with limited cap space and 3 superstars on the team. You see how hard it is for them to put players together? You see what they have to do to jump through hoops to get a roster? The Lakers are old because of this dynamic, because couldn't afford to pay everybody. You can only afford to get the old guys, man. That's why the team's so old. Same reason why Brooklyn's so old. That's all we could afford. Is that what you want to be if you're Philadelphia, with players that don't fit with one another? That's what they're going to be. The way things are going right now, I mean, they've paid Tobias Harris, they've paid Ben Simmons, they've played Joel Embiid. What else you need to know? What else do you need to know? It's not that they don't draft well, because they do. All the players that I've mentioned, they were all really good players. Just haven't had opportunities. They've deteriorated, like I said, in their franchise. These guys were good. Joel Okafor was a fantastic center prospect. We know what Markelle Fultz can do. I did plenty of footage. I watched plenty of footage on Markelle Fultz leading up to the draft. That dude is for real, for real. He deteriorated there. Whatever happened with his shoulder and all that, and how they handled it, how they allowed the media to run with a certain narrative instead of coming out and putting that to bed, saying that this guy has some type of issue, why it took so long for them to figure out what the hell was wrong with him. Some million different things that went wrong there. And all I can do is look at them. All I can do is look at their organization and the resources that they have. I know should be very good. In Philadelphia, they should have resources. There should be no reason for some of the issues that they've had to be the way that it is. So, as a fan, like, I'm a fan of the Lakers, but as a fan of the NBA, I say, man, Ben Simmons has not had an opportunity yet to show what he can do because he hasn't been built around. He needs to be a part of an organization that was smart enough not to overpay him so that they couldn't move him if they weren't going to build properly around him. Now he get to a point where he needs to go somewhere else and he can't be moved because these idiots made this contract too damn expensive to move anywhere. That's what it is. The situation's deteriorated. He wants out, and there's no one can go anywhere, bro. No one can go anywhere. Am I mad at the kid for signing the contract? No. Do I think he would have signed the contract knowing this was down the road? Hell no, he wouldn't. He wouldn't have signed it. I know he wouldn't have signed it because he could get that money anywhere else. The money that he was paid, he earned as a player. It's not that wasn't gifted to him. See, that's why people need to hear me and hear me good. I don't think he signs that contract because I know for a fact he can earn it anywhere else. He can earn that. That wasn't gifted. He would earn more if he were in a situation that was built around him as need be. And see, that's another thing I want to say while I'm here. Ben Simmons is worth building around, young. He's worth building around. He's a 7-foot point guard with Magic Johnson passing ability. All you need to do is surround him with plenty of shooters. Start off with a Karl Anthony Towns type player. Find you a Klay Thompson type player. Then a Bradley Bealish type guy. That's what he needs. Kemba Walker prototypes to pass the rock to. Power forwards like Christian Wood prototypes. This is the type of stuff he needs. Your Lauri Markkanens. Those are the type of players. That's why, Dallas bringing him in and bringing Markkanen in, that's a decent fit. Markkanen can't defend worth a damn but can stretch the floor if he's shooting right. Ben Simmons can defend but can't stretch the floor at all. Those are the type of players you can put around Ben Simmons. Suddenly you're looking at a team that can win 60 games. You put the right players around Ben Simmons. And for those who are laughing, have you ever seen that? Have you ever seen it? No. Why? Philly never did it. Philly never did it. For those who are laughing at me saying, how you don't build on Ben Simmons doesn't shoot. Yes, you do. In fact, that's the only way to use Ben Simmons. You're supposed to build around him. We said that draft night. Don't send him to Philly because him and Joel aren't the greatest fit. You got to surround him with shooters. They were saying it that night, man. And that's the part that bothers me a little bit. Just a little bit. People really act brand new about Ben Simmons like they didn't know what he was about. Like this is the first time we realized he doesn't shoot threes. Like this is the first time we realized he ain't that good of a free throw shooter. This has been him the whole time. I mean, he wasn't this bad at the free throw line, but he was always like this. He never attempted threes even when he was out there making all-star teams. They paid him. He was playing like this. That's the part that angers me about the Ben Simmons situation. They should be high on Ben Simmons. Philadelphia should. They should be asking for the King's ransom, a Browse ransom, Anthony Davis ransom. They should be. Why? Because they believed in him to that degree. They paid him that kind of money. You see what I'm saying? They shouldn't be down on him. They shouldn't. They ain't got no reason to. They should be down on themselves. They the ones that didn't develop him. They the ones that didn't build around him. It ain't the kid's fault. See what I'm saying? If he were KD, these would not be issues. Because KD fits anywhere. But a guy like Ben Simmons must be built around. There is no two ways about it. You cannot pick and plug that guy nearly anywhere. But if you build around him properly, you can win. Win-win. You just got to put the right shooters, catch and shoot shooters around it. Plenty of catch and shoot shooters, plenty of defenders that can accompany him in defending the basketball. Because he's going to spearhead the defense himself. He's going to be your best defender on your team. What you need, though, is shooting. After that, you're going to watch him make all-star teams like he's been doing. If he can make all-star teams in a system that ain't no good, that ain't built for him, what do you think he can do with one that is? All I'm saying is, a team like the Thunder, they would be the best destination for a guy like Ben Simmons because they have a completely blank canvas. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true anymore now that you got Shea, but I don't think Shea and Ben Simmons are the worst fit in the world. Shea's jump shot is strong, and Shea's defense is elite. So that right there isn't the worst fit in the world. But you better keep building, that's what I'm saying. But you need a blank canvas. Washington, good place for Ben Simmons today. Why? Because they have the catch and shoot player like Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal showed us last year he can play with a superstar that doesn't shoot. Play well with him. And what the Washington Wizards have in theory, depending on if they get rid of Bradley Beal this year, next year, is a blank canvas and a bunch of cap space to bring the pieces to Ben Simmons he needs. That is the type of situation Ben Simmons is best to be in. A situation where the pieces can be brought to him. Now, you can still make him the second or third guy. You just got to bring a guy better than him to him. But that's the only way to do it, in my opinion. So, key to building around Ben Simmons, find exactly what his number two should be. Figuring out in your mind what type of number two is best. Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. Any player that's very, very good catching the ball and letting it fly. Doesn't necessarily need to get his with the ball in his hands. That's the best number two for Ben Simmons. Catch and shoot guy. The best catch and shoot guys you can find. Surround him with enough of them dudes. Voila. Ben Simmons is averaging upwards of 12, 13 assists. 12, 13 boards, 12, 13 points. Triple-double averaged easy. He breaks Russell Westbrook's triple-double record eventually. In a situation like that, from year to year to year to year to year to year, by year 12, if you still have that formula around him, he will have broke Russell Westbrook's triple-double record. That's what I think of Ben Simmons. That's why I talk about him so much, because I freaking know. The problem is going to be for him, personally, overcome this. So he can shoot the ball, shoot free throws better. He has to do that. But as far as the skill set, what the body's capable of doing, what the player's capable of doing with his mind, his skills, man, please. He's worth every penny. It's just hard to move him from a place that doesn't fit, who's already paid him, with another superstar, to a situation that does fit, when he doesn't really fit anywhere that currently is in place right now in this league. Someone needs to take a chance and build around the kid. That's it. Someone needs to take a chance, look at that trash contract that Philadelphia cursed all of us with, and take on the challenge of building around him. You won't be mad you did. My name is BDF44. Thanks for watching this very long video, and I'm out.